Okay, we're continuing our study on the Virtuous woman experience, and the last few weeks we've been doing that by looking at the Song of Solomon and the Shulamite. It's really been exciting to just explore all these different women in the Bible and see what they really picture to us. You know, in the past we've always been taught that they picture a harlot. You know, we were taught that our harlot was our soul, and our soul needs to be saved, and we've seen some tremendous truths that have wakened us up to really, we never have been a harlot, nor were they a harlot. They lived that way because they were perceived to be that way, or taught that they were that way, or out of circumstances, and we're seeing a lot more. So last week we left off, and we were going to read from Song of Solomon 2:14, so that's what we'll be doing today. Hopefully when we get finished with this chapter today, I'll write a new one next week. We've got 3 more chapters to go in this study. Very excited about it. I've had a lot of people ask me to publish this book, so I think I'm going to. I've never really wanted to, actually felt pushed to do this, but I think this book will really set a lot of people free. My concern is if we can come up with a title that men will read it, because most men think the Song of Solomon is about, the Virtuous woman is something a woman would want to learn about or whatever. But so I've got to come up with a title. So be praying with me that we can come up with a good title for the book, where they won't just think it's about how to be a good wife. So it says, Song of Solomon 2:14 says, "O my dove, in the clefts of the rock." So what would you think the cleft of the rock is? What would you think that pictures? Anybody know? It would be in his side. Jesus is the rock, remember? When the children of Israel went through the wilderness, there was a rock that followed them, and they were to speak to the rock. It was only struck one time, and from then on they were to speak to the rock, and the water would begin to flow out of that. And that's a picture of the rock, Christ inside of us. Literally all we need to do is speak to that life that's inside of us. I'm going to be talking somewhat about praying today, but I've learned more and more just to speak to the life of God, and I release it through me by faith. We don't have to beat it out, curse it out, bind it out, beg for it. We just speak. And remember that song we used to sing, "One to spring up, oh well within my soul"? That's speaking to that rock. So you're already in the cleft of the rock, and I'm glad that the rock was cleft, which means that's what happened to Jesus. He was pierced in his side. So there was a crucifixion, which is the majority of the picture here. His side was pierced. He was nailed to the cross, and he said, "You are involved in that, my sweetheart." That's what he was saying. You're involved in what I'm going to do. Then it says, "O my dove, in the clefts of the rock, in the secret places of the cliff, let me see your face. Let me hear your voice, for your voice is sweet." So if out of the abundance the spirit, or actually the brain or intellect, speaks, then really we are to be speaking what comes out of our redemption, right? Not speaking what's opposite of that, but what comes out of our redemption. I was talking to Kay Fairchild last week. I was in Fort Wayne, Indiana, and we got to visit a lot. And one of her church members was saying, I was asking how a lady was doing that's got cancer, and he said, "We just don't speak of that. We don't speak of that." And I asked Kay about that. She said, "Well, some people take that to the extreme, but it's not that we don't speak it. We don't deny that it's there, but we defy its right, because it is a no thing." Don and I have been discussing this over the weekend a lot, that how we really need to see things. When we were young, in younger years or past years, we would bind things, we would rebuke things, we would say, Kay's teaching a series right now, she titles it The Vacuum, and we would say, "I refuse to believe or receive that evil report," and the very fact that we say that, we give it a power, because we call it evil. So we say there is an evil. And she's teaching in that series right now. I think there's 6 or 7 lessons on the internet. I encourage you to listen to them. But just really teaching how to see it as no thing. And again, we're not ignoring it. If you come to me and say that the doctors told you that you had cancer, I'm just not going to say, "Well, forget it, don't worry about it, don't do anything about it." I'm just going to say, we're not going to give it a power. We're not going to glorify it. We're not going to call it evil. We're not going to call it good. Because how many times have we said, if you win the lottery, and people say, "Isn't it good? I won the lottery." Well, maybe it is, maybe it's not. So we don't want to look at things that way. So we need to begin to speak what's true of our redemption. And the fact is, everything that Jesus swallowed up and made void, and we know that was everything that Adam released, right? Adam's choice to live separate from the knowledge of God. What he did release sickness and disease and poverty and lack in every realm of life. And we know that Jesus destroyed that. So when it does present itself, we're training ourselves to see it as no thing. There's no power in it. Donna has some, they say it's a virus or whatever, but she has these little breakouts, and it itches something terrible. And I'm not saying it's not there, and I'm not saying pretend it's not there, because it itches, and sometimes it just drives her nuts. But what we've got to do is change our thinking that it is not a power, it does not belong to her, and continue. And I believe what happens as we begin to think that way, as we think, as we believe, then it releases the truth, and the truth is what will make us free from that kind of stuff. That's when we know that we know. And I believe that, again, I don't believe Kay is the example, but I believe she got to where she had some understanding, where she could see cancer is no thing. And no matter what they said, she just said, it's no thing, it's no power in my life. I talked to Dwayne Hobson this week. If you remember, I read his story to you about, they told him that he had congestive heart failure. They told him that he had a virus in his heart. They put him on medication, and they told him that he had a blockage in one of his arteries. Well, he went back last week, and the doctor said, I don't know what happened, but none of that's there. There's no blockage. There's no congestive heart failure. There's none of it. They're weaning him off the medicine, because you don't just stop taking the heart medicine immediately. They're weaning off of it. They tell him to start getting back on his exercise program, and the doctor is amazed. I believe many doctors have seen miraculous things, but they can't speak it because the medical society will just lambast them for it. You know, they can't. So they just say, we don't know what happened. Maybe the X-ray machine was broke. They have to blame it for that. But that's a good report, and I think that comes from just knowing. So our voice is to be sweet, as he said. Our voice is to be sweet and say good things that line up with his word. And if you don't know his word, then how can you speak those things? You know, without faith, it's impossible to agree with God. Well, if you don't have faith in the finished work of the cross, which most of us didn't in our earlier years, then we would fall prey to how religion taught us to do it. You know, bind it out, curse it out, spit it out, throw it up in a bag, you know, all kinds of stuff that I've told you that's happened because people haven't known what our Father's done. So, for the most part, we say things about ourselves that are not true. Would you agree with me? Now you say, well, now, Pastor Roy, you know, I have arthritis in my body, and you tell me it's not true. No, it's not true. It may be there, but it's not true, because the truth is Jesus swallowed up, destroyed it, and made it void. The only reason it's there is because we thought it had a right. We've been taught all of our life, when we get older, we're going to start hurting, you know, our joints going to ache, you know, and like we say in the funeral industry all the time, people say somebody died, what's the first thing we say? Well, how old were they? They were 80. Oh, well, they lived a long life. They lived a good life. Or they were 40. Oh, my gosh,
way too young.
Yeah, so we make this decision, and it's not true. It's not true that it's normal to die at 90. It's not true that it's normal to have arthritis when we get older or whatever. That's all a lie, and yet we believe that lie. So let's go to chapter 3 now. Solomon 3:11. It says, Go forth, O you daughters of Zion, and behold King Solomon with a crown wherewith his mother crowned him, and the day of his espousal, and the day of the gladness of his heart. Now that pictures Jesus, so who would the mother be? The mother would be the church, right? And what did the church do? They crowned him. But it wasn't a golden crown, was it?
No.
Most people, when they see crowns, they think it's a golden crown. And I always remember people telling us that when we go to heaven and we see Jesus, we're going to take our crowns off, because I was taught that we're going to get a crown with all kinds of rewards. You'll have a special jewel because you was a great preacher, or Dick and Elaine because they've served in the audio ministry, they're going to have a diamond for that. And, you know, people thought that, didn't they? And they thought we were going to take our crown off and lay it at his feet. But that's what that's talking about, is we're going to take, when we see him for who he is, we're going to take that mentality, that religious mentality, and put it at his feet and exchange it for his. And that's part of the beheading. So his mother, the church, gave him that crown, and we know that crown was the crown of thorns. So we find the answer for this, who are hungry, in that verse. The crown, it is the crown of thorns, and the day that he became one with humanity was in the Garden of Gethsemane, in the day of his espousal. He said, I will, in the Old Testament, over several times it said, I will marry you. In other words, I'm going to become one with humanity, and he did that in the person and work of Jesus Christ. So his head bore the confusion, or more accurately, in his mind, and that is when he became one, or became 100% human right then. I read a book that someone did recently, and they're trying to say that he was human when he was born through Mary, and he was not. He was a man. He was 100% man with 100% God in him. He did not become human until the Garden of Gethsemane when he emptied himself out and became one. So we must understand the spiritual picture of that crown of thorns. One will never experience any benefit from the golden crown without understanding that. And yet there's so many people out there today. You can go to fellowships or conferences and they're all wearing these gold crowns. You know, they have them all and they want to sit on the throne and they want to celebrate that, but we're throne room people and all that. But very few of those people understand the crown that Jesus wore. And if they don't, they're going to me, it's not much different than going to a cheerleading session or, you know, something to pump you all up and get you all excited. But then when you go home, you can't live out of that because you still battle with the confusion up here. And you don't feel worthy to put that golden crown on. And so what we teach people is you feed on the death side of the cross, and the death side of the cross produces the life side because it removes everything that hinders you from living as a most holy place priest. It removes everything that keeps you from dwelling in that realm, and that's what God wants us to do, is to dwell in that realm. So he bore the curse at the beginning, and that's that picture there throughout the Scripture, all through the Old Testament, and every picture there is in the Old Testament, we see that picture of what he bore. Now Joseph, we know, is a picture of Jesus, and he married an Egyptian woman. He married a woman that was not in the Hebrew family. And why would he do that? Why would Scripture even record that? Well, because in the truest sense, Jesus pictures that. He's our heavenly Joseph, and he married humanity. They were God's children, and they were always God's children, but they were living as void of that, or not living that kind of life. So he became one with a fallen state, if I could say it that way. There was no fall as far as not being God's children, but there was a separation themselves. God never left them, but they left God. Does that explain it right, Elaine? God never left them. His Spirit never left them, but they left him. They separated themselves from their life source, so that's why we say to live as humans. So he became one with that state of all who were in and of the first man, Adam. He was willing, that's what I think is cool, he was willing to take the unlovely woman unto himself so that he could make a new, altogether brand new creation, race of people like us, or his lovely woman, which is called the last man, Adam. So again, a crown, and I'm saying this for the people listening on the internet, because you guys should all know this already, but anytime you see the word crown in the Bible, it always speaks of a mentality or a mindset. When the woman with a crown of 12 stars, then that speaks of a covenant mindset. She has a thorough understanding of the redemptive work of Jesus Christ. So he made the last man, Adam. He made the new creation being, sons of God, brides of Christ, the most holy place temple. We could go on and on and on with what he did. And we're not becoming those. He, in the resurrection, Christ was a many-membered man. Christ was not Jesus, as we would say, and people struggle with that, some I know, but it wasn't Jesus, Mary's boy, coming out of that grave. It was Christ, the new man. And we've gone over many, many times how Christ, the new man, appeared in different forms. And today, Christ, the new man, is in every form of every human being on every man, I can say human being on planet Earth. That's Christ. But not all are aware of that. Most of us have just come to that awareness in the last 5 or 10 years. You know, we had no clue that we were Christ. We just thought Jesus lived in there somewhere, right? You know, a lot of people, Jesus is in me somewhere. I'm not quite sure where. In my heart, you know, whatever. But now we know that we are Christ, the new man. And any time in my writings, because I still haven't corrected all of them, sometimes when we'll say Christ died on the cross, Christ did not die on the cross. Jesus, as humanity, died on the cross. That's who died on the cross. That's who went through all that. So Hosea then married Gomer, which we know that, and who was living falsely as a harlot. One who receives seed is a harlot from many men, right? And so what we need to understand, how does this work out in our lives? Have we all lived the life of a harlot in the past? Yes, we have. You know, and I'm not talking about a prostitute or whatever. But that is the mind that's chasing teacher after teacher, book after book, conference after conference, not really having a teacher pastor to come alongside and allow them to teach them. I believe everybody needs a fivefold ministry, a gifted fivefold ministry in their life. I believe they need to be feeding from that ministry. If that ministry ever gets where they quit and they don't go any further, then you need to continue to go further, and possibly you will become that yourself. And most likely that's what's going to happen here. But there's too many people out there chasing teacher after teacher, book after book, and they picture that harlot because they're receiving seed from anybody. And if God plants you somewhere, you've got to stay there. You've got to stay with that and learn from that, because I was telling John the other day, he gave me this book over here. There's a lot of books out there that sound really good, and they sound like they're finished work. But when you get in there and you begin to find mixture, and you find leaven, it leavens the whole lump. And this is a bold thing to say, but I think if there's a book out there that the masses want, most likely it's not accurate, because the masses don't want the truth right now. If it's feeding the outer court holy place realm, then it's most likely not a most holy place message. It's got some mixture in there somewhere. So we need to be careful what we chase after, because we can still live the life of a harlot today spiritually. Amen? So we have to guard ourselves and be careful. So it's so unlike Father to do what this picture of Gomar, except it pictured Jesus and his union with humanity in the redemptive work of Jesus Christ. He chose to become the federal head. That's why in that garden, and I always think about that, in that garden, he said, if there be any other way, let this cup pass from me. He knew what he was doing. And he just said, nevertheless, thy will. So he chose to do that. And he did that to bring all back to the very heights of Zion. And he did it, did he not? He brought everyone back. So he wore humanity's cursed crown so that all would wear the golden crown, which we see in the book of Revelation. And most of us, in Tree of Life Ministries, most of us that studied for this many years, we've got that golden crown right now. We understand the revelation of Jesus crucified, died, buried, quick, and raised and seated. We understand now that humanity, everybody before the cross was crucified and died, and everybody after the cross is quickened and raised and seated. So we've got to have, everybody has to have that full understanding. So what about this statement? It says, in the day of the gladness of his heart. Well, Hebrews 12 says, for the joy set before him, he endured the cross. So literally that's that picture there that Jesus was willing to go. He was glad to go. I mean, he came here for 33 and a half years, and he lived among men. He lived and saw the results of everything that Adam had done. And so wouldn't you think that he was glad to set these people free? He knew what he was going to do. He was going to bring them back to that restoration period where God and man could fellowship again, and God could get what he wanted. God always wanted a body. He always wanted a people to fellowship with. And so Jesus, God in Jesus, was reconciling the world. And then he saw this woman, Ephesians 4, without spot, without blemish, that he could actually enter into union with and reproduce himself. And that's the only reason. And that's why he was glad, is because he wanted an offspring. Song of Solomon 4:6 says, until the day breaks. And I like this. I used this on Facebook the other day, and a lot of people were amazed like they'd never seen it before. But until the day breaks and the shadow flees away, I will go my way to the mountain of myrrh and to the hill of frankincense. What he was saying is, until you can see this, I'm still going to be on the cross. I mean, I remember, wasn't it Justin Phillips that said that once, Donna, that his blood is fresh every day? I think it was.
Heard that,
it was either Justin or Lynn House, but I think it was Justin years ago, and that really impacted me because his blood is fresh. He was the lamb that's slain before the foundation of the world. In the book of Revelation, it says John first, John in the Gospel of John said, behold the lamb that takes away the sins of the world. So everybody needed to behold that lamb. And Mary Magdalene did that, didn't she? And other Marys, which pictures the brain, they saw him crucified, they saw him died, they saw him buried, they saw him quickened, they saw him raised, they saw him seated, they saw all of that. So that's a picture of a brain seeing that. And in the book of Revelation, then it says, behold the lamb has slain. Now, he wasn't slain anymore. He was arisen and he was back in union with the Father. But it says, you must behold the Lamb as slain. And if you don't, you can't see it. And so that's what this is talking about. He said, until the day breaks. Until you wake up. Until you learn to function with your eyes that you have to see and your ears to hear. I'm going to go to the mountain of myrrh and the hill of frankincense. Is that not what he was anointed with for his death? Was myrrh and frankincense? Right? And so I'm going to go there, and I'm just going to be there until you see. I'll always be there until you see. So again, it's always a fresh revelation. It's not an old message. I remember Brother Garner telling us years ago about, he was in a group of men, they were at a conference, and they were all sitting around the table, and they were talking about what they were going to preach. All these guys had these high and lofty revelations they were going to teach and stuff, and they got to Brother Garner, and he said, I'm going to preach on the death, the burial, the resurrection of Jesus Christ. And some guy said, well, thank God somebody's going to preach the basics, you know, like it was really nothing. Well, that's all there is. Brother Garner said that. That's all there is. If you're preaching anything but the basics, you're going to fail. It's just like in my career, I mentor salespeople. And usually if a salesperson's done real well for many, many years, and all of a sudden they're closing less and less and less sales, what they've done is they've left the basics. They shortcutted. We have a presentation that I wrote. You do this, you do this, you say this, you do this, you say this, and it'll end up most of the time to sell. But what happens sometimes, we would get out there and think, oh, this person's going to buy. We just think they're going to, so we leave this out, and we leave this out, and we don't do this, and we don't say this, and then they don't buy. And we walk away and say, I can't believe they didn't buy. And then we do that again, and I can't believe they didn't buy. Well, then all of a sudden we wake up, oh, we quit presenting the personal planning guide. We quit presenting this. We quit using this technique and this technique. And so it's the same thing. If you don't understand what it took to get us here, then how are you ever going to live out of that life? You got to understand it all. And the key is Isaiah, when he saw the Lord high and lifted up, it changed him, but something had to happen before he could see it. King Uzziah needed to die first. King Uzziah, to me, pictures the mindsets. The mindsets that's up here have to die. People say all the time, well, I can't see it, I can't see it, I don't know what you're talking about. Well, it's because you've got some mindsets up there that have been infected by religion and tradition, again, by what's been told about you, what you think about yourself. That all had to die. And how Uzziah died is he got leprosy. It pictures carnal thoughts. You know, we used to say leprosy pictures sin, but it pictures carnal thoughts in his head, and it killed his whole body. See, family, our body is redeemed.
Yeah.
The Bible teaches it. Paul said that last salvation, ready to be revealed. It's not that it's going to happen. It's that last level of salvation that not only did he redeem my spirit, not only did he redeem give me the mind of Christ, but he also redeemed my body. I mean, think about it, Elaine. Why would he leave our body out? If Jesus came to bring man back to wholeness, why would he say, well, I'm just going to fix your spirit? Because he gave, when God created man, he gave us a perfect body. Adam never was created to die. I tell people that, and they just look at me, well, what? You know, well, read your Bible. I mean, even after they cut themselves off of the life of God, Methuselah lived to be 800 and something years.
960.
Huh? 960? Yeah, and Adam lived to be 930 years. That took that long for that death to take that body out. I mean, their bodies were awesome. Their bodies were spirit and body, both. Adam was in full awareness of the spirit realm. He was here on planet Earth, but he saw God, he walked with God, he fellowshiped with God, he talked with God all the time. They were never separate. Can you imagine what that would be like? I said that on purpose because it's not going to be like it's that way today. We walk in the full awareness, I mean, not awareness, but we walk in full union because as he is, we are today.
Yes.
We are the very presence of God today, but yet we sing these songs we don't hear, but we can only imagine. It's just like one of these days in the sweet mind's eye. It's all put off out there, and as long as it's put off out there, then we're not going to enjoy it today. So our King Uzziah is our thoughts up there that hinder us, that hold us back, and it keeps us from seeing the Lord high and lifted up in us, exalted in us. And his train, his life, fills our temple. We are full. Donna Faye, every cell in your skin is full of the life of God. And if it's not powerful enough to swallow up those spots on you, I don't know what it's powerful enough to do. And again, and I'm just using Donna, I'm not getting on to Donna, but she knows that. But same way with me. Every place I have an element, there's a life of God there that's there to deal with it, but there's something hindering it, and it's that the leprosy of those thoughts has been put in our mind. So we must start with identification of him on the cross. And you know, people can say, well, Pastor, you teach this over and over and over. Well, we have to. Again, we haven't even scratched the surface.
Right.
We've come a long way since 1996. Some of you came way after that, but there is so much more to see. You know, people ask me all the time, well, have you read the whole Bible? No, because it's not necessary to read the whole Bible. I'm studying the whole Bible. I'm taking the Chronicles. I've never taught Chronicles. I've never studied Chronicles yet. You know, many of the books in there, but we're getting there. We're getting there, and we're going to see every picture there is. And I believe that it's going to bring us a permanence of life in every area of life. I believe, like Kay, I'm not doing this so I won't die, but I believe it. There are going to be a people that's going to rise up, and death, actually physical death, is going to be swallowed up, completely swallowed up. Jesus swallowed it up, but it's going to become that reality to us. So again, Revelation 5 says that they saw the Lamb as it had been slain. So you have to realize with Father, the things that you can see with your spiritual eyes come by the Holy Spirit revealing that to you with things that you could not see with your physical eyes. I remember Brother Garner, I'm getting ready to sneeze. I hate it when I can't sneeze. Excuse me. Erase that on the video. I do that when I speak at work a lot. It's just like I need to sneeze, but it won't come out. So it's all right. Probably wouldn't look good. But I remember when I first met Brother Garner, and he was teaching these things, and I tried to see. I mean, I tried, and I just could not figure out how he could see these things. You know, and today people do that with Kay and me now. It's not trying, it's not effort, it's just feeding. And as you feed, your eyes get open to more and more and more. I was talking to one of the presidents of our company the other day, called me, and you know, I was talking to him about how I was impressed how the person that he replaced his position after he retired, he knew, he knows people's names. He could hear your name, and 10 years later, you go, "Elaine, how you doing?" And I was talking about what a gift that was, and he said, "I know." He said, it's just a gift. He can hear about you, never see you, and then see a picture of you, and then next time he sees you, he's going to call you by your name. And I told him, I said, you know, I beat myself up for that all the time because I struggle with names. But I said, but you know what? I study Scripture. I don't struggle with it. I study it. I spend time in it. A lot of things come to my remembrance today, and it's because I spent time in it. So if I did the same thing with somebody's name, you know, like if I introduced to Wanda and somebody said, this is Wanda Button, and then I begin to talk to Wanda and I begin to study her and I get to know her, then that name will stay there with me. But it's when I hear your name and I walk away and we never talk again, it's hard to remember your name. I went up to a lady the other day in Fort Wayne, and I only met her one time, and so I went up and introduced myself to her again, and I said, you know, and she said, well, how many times are we going to have to meet me, or something like that. I want to say, I'm sorry, it's a brain disorder. So, but we need to see these things, and we need to see these things, and we need to see these things, and we view this at every physical picture of the Old Testament, every spiritual truth in the New Testament. And so learning then would be a lifetime event. Would you agree? It's a lifetime event. And when you learn, you live out of what you're learning. And the more you learn, the more you live out of it. And so that's why I say we need to continue, because guess what? As we learn more, life gets better, doesn't it?
Yes.
Donna, isn't our life better than it was back in 1970?
I understand.
Back in 1996, when we first met Brother Garner, I'm telling you, it has been the most marvelous journey from 96 to today. Just learning and learning and growing, and meeting Lynn Howes, meeting John Cahill, meeting Kate Fairchild, just them mentoring me, and then now me ministering with them. And it's life is much better than it was back then. And now I'm not trying to figure out how Brother Garner did it. I'm learning that it's just study and show yourself approved. But have the right box top, as
Yes.
Brother Garner said. You know, quit looking for what you need to do. Carol Madden wrote a term paper for me on this, and she was telling me how she always was trying to be that virtuous woman. She took cooking lessons and sewing lessons, and she wanted to be the best wife she could be and the best husband, and failed many times.
Husband.
I'm sure she burnt the eggs sometimes.
Mother.
Huh?
You said husband.
Oh, well, she wanted to be a mother and a good wife to her husband and to her children. And she was always trying to be that virtuous woman, and she was just talking about what this series has done for her. If she found out that she was already that. The day they said I do, she was that. She was that before then. And so it causes you to enter into that rest. To me, a better life is just being able to rest. You know, and rest with God and know that there's nothing that He has against me. So He said, until you can see, I'm going to that hill. This is where I'll be until light revelation breaks forth in your brain. He said, I will be on the cross until the day breaks. Just keep looking at that cross. But see what's cool about it, when you finally see it and you understand it, and like Isaiah said, when my Uzziah died, my king, because see, what you think in your brain is your king, is it not? Your thoughts is your king. Your thoughts rule and reign your dreams. They control your actions. They control how you react to people. The thoughts in your brain control everything, so it becomes a king. And so when you see that king dead, and I'm telling you what, family, I could testify, there's been some kings in my mind that are dead now. They no longer bother me. I no longer think about them. They're gone. And I'm telling you what, when that happens, then I can see, you know what? Christ is in me. That very life of God is in me, and it's here to rule and it's here to reign inside of me. But until then, He's just going to be on the cross for you. Right? And there's a lot of people that have that mentality. I don't like to see the crosses people wear that Jesus is hanging on. He's not on that cross. You know, and a lot of people still wear that. But that's where they see Him. Or they see Him out there on planet Earth somewhere, and we're down here. And so once we see all that dead, then that's when you really see that Christ, the day breaks, the dawn breaks, and the fullness of that new day comes to us. But He's gracious. He's not going to call us a bunch of dummies. He said, I'll stay here as long as you need me to. Now, is He on a cross somewhere? No. But what He's saying is, your understanding, whatever your understanding is of me, I'll just be there for you. Because I'm going to always be trying to bring you up higher and higher and higher. Some people see that Jesus just died for them, and that's where they're at. But is Jesus going to leave them? Is God going to leave them? No, God's still going to minister to them right where they're at. But the goal is to bring you up. And if you're not willing to come up, then you'll stay in that level all your life. I don't want to go back. I don't want to go back to where I was pleading with God to do something. I don't want to go back to where I was waiting on somebody to give me a word of knowledge to encourage me, or give somebody to pay my bills for me, or somebody to do this for me. You know, that's no fun. That's a poverty life. That's always needing something. I don't want to live where I need something. I want to live where I live in the business of God and realize who I am. I am Christ the new man. I am a most holy place, temple of God. And you know what? I deserve to live a nice, comfortable life. And you do too. God wants us to.
Yes.
Now, listen to her confession here. Paul pictures this kind of people. She sat on a rock until what happened? She sat on a rock until the rain came. Okay, the rock is Jesus, right?
Right.
And so she saw these sons all hang by Saul's sons. There were 7 of Saul's sons, which was the work of flesh, if you would. He was a fleshly king. And the Gibeonites came and demanded restitution. And so David said, all right, what do you want? They said, we want 7 of Saul's sons. And so one of them was Armani. And Armani is a name that means fit for a king. I like to wear Armani suits, only if I find them at a thrift store because they cost too much money. And then the other one was Mephibosheth, which was not Jonathan's son. It was another Mephibosheth, and it means degradation. And so Armani represents, I'm not in the notes, I'm just talking to you. Armani represents the very best that you can do in Adam. And in the first man, Adam, there were people that did good things. They weren't all what we call evil. There were people that lived their entire life, you know, nice, but they still were of the first man, Adam. And Mephibosheth represents the very worst that you could do in Adam. And then the other 5 sons represent the 5 realms of life, which is spiritual, mental, physical, social, and financial. And Adam affected all 5 of those realms. Now, I used to teach that their spirit was dead. It wasn't dead, it was just pushed back. It wasn't active. They wasn't drawing from the spirit, they were drawing from the other 6 realms and getting the wrong information. So she sat there, and she sat on what Jesus did. And she sat there and she viewed it, and she viewed it, and she viewed it. And her family would come and try to shoo her away. You need to get out of that church. That church is a cult. It just amazes me how many people think some of you go to a cult. We have family members here that their children and their parents think they go to a cult. And I just want to say, you must think me and Butch are really powerful to fool these people. I don't think we're that good to fool you people. But they came and they tried to get her away. The birds came by day, and the wolves or whatever came at night. She shooed them away until the latter rain came. And the latter rain was the teaching that it wasn't just for you, but it was as you. And when she saw the truth, she got up and walked on. In other words, she got up and began to live out of that. So this lady here, she in verse 7, she says, the watchmen who went about the city found me, and they struck me, and they wounded me. The keepers of the wall took my veil away from me. So what happens here is Jesus, or Solomon, leaves her. He goes out. He goes out. Where does he go, family? He goes out to where he wants her to go. Out into the fields, out where the people are. Too many people want to just be about me and Jesus. I just want to stay in the house and it's just me and you. I don't want to get my feet dirty. You see this in the Song of Solomon. We'll see this when we teach that next. But she didn't want to go out there, but Jesus went on out there, or Solomon went out there. And so all of a sudden she's off by herself, and what happens is the ministers came along and began to try to deal with her. She said, the keepers of the wall. Who's the keepers of the wall? What's the wall? Salvation, right? So this ministry is supposed to be a keeper of that. We're supposed to help you understand how you were saved. But what they did is they struck her, they wounded her. They've been finding out what she's been doing. They beat her down, and she was smitten. Have you been there? I mean, what's it like if you were out last week and you just got a big drunk binge and everything, and you come to church and the preacher starts preaching against drunkards? What does it do to you? It beats you down. It makes you feel less than. It makes you feel like a dirty dog. Or they start sniffing out the sins and they find out what somebody else is doing and they begin to preach against it. And that's what had happened here. And it wounds you. And it took away her veil. What was her veil? Her righteousness, right? When the preachers are preaching about you, you don't feel very righteous. And so they never told, she said, they never told me of him being smitten as humanity. They beat me up, they wounded me, they did not let me know that I am not who I thought I was. They didn't feed me the unleavened bread, if you would. They didn't teach me that I was righteous. They showed everybody in the church that I was what I was falsely manifesting. I've been in churches like that. I mean, I've been in church. I've been in church where one of my relatives was talked about all the time from the pulpit. Anytime that tried to stand up for something that was going wrong, immediately the preacher would get up and start preaching about their sin. And that's the way of putting them down. That's the way of controlling them. And so she said, this is what the church has done to me. And I'm saying this is what the church has done far too long. It has not produced anything. She said, as soon as I lost him, the watchman came. And so then they said, if you want what you are really looking for, you have to be smitten. And that's where the church has come up with all the rules and regulations, and we have to fast all night long. We have to fast for 7 days. We have to come pray for 24 hours. And Ralph, I know you work all day, but I want you here at 3 o'clock in the morning. You know, and all those things that we came to try to please God, to try to get God to move. That's the smiting. You have to fight. That's what they believe. You have to fight a perceived enemy. And so we had all these, quote, devil fighting parties. And you smite the rock again. I was taught that you had to, you could demand God to do something. I never understood that. But I had a pastor that taught that we demand God to bless us and demand God to do that. The religious ministry exposed the mark missing. And Lord of mercy, are they doing that today? You watch on Facebook and you watch on some of these TV shows, these quote Christian shows, and they're just, all they're doing is exposing people's problems. They're not preaching the answer. So let's go to chapter 6 now, the Song of Solomon. It says, your teeth are like a flock of sheep which have come from the washing. Everyone bears twins, and none is barren among them. Didn't you mention that a week or so ago, Wanda, about bearing twins?
Yeah.
Yeah. She feeds on him, and what this means, she feeds on him crucified, and it comes out, I was crucified with him. That's what that means, twins. She begins to see herself as the plural of God. And remember I forget what book it's in now, but it says, we shall live in his sight, and that word sight is a plural of a noun. And so in other words, we shall live as him. So that's what this is talking about. What she sees it as her too. She feeds on him being buried, and so it comes out, I was buried with him. Now, if you'll remember, the Apostle Paul was teaching these people on crucified, died, buried, quickly raised, and seated, what happened to Jesus. That was then. They were there then, and they were of that genealogy that was alive when Jesus went to the cross. So he could say, you were there, you were involved in that. But you know what? We're not of that, are we? So I'm not saying I was buried with him because I'm a new creation being. But he was explaining to people what happened. And he said, Dick, here you are on this side of the cross. and you're 20 years old, 40 years old, whatever, and Jesus comes and he deals with all it. He takes care of what you were. So now here you are on the other side of the cross, the life side, but he's explaining to you what happened to Dick that was there day before yesterday. Is that a good way to explain it? But we were not there. There was a generation that died off, and everybody after the cross was Christ. So, but we still say I was buried because it's just a good way for people to understand that. But literally humanity was buried. Humanity died. Humanity was crucified. So it bears twins. In other words, it describes that understanding to us. And it describes it in chapter 7 by saying, how beautiful are thy feet with shoes. So what were her feet shod with? The preparation of what? Peace. And so how beautiful are your feet that now you can walk in peace. You can walk in understanding. You don't walk in strife anymore. You don't struggle. Your life is full of peace. That comes from a knowing. I can't lay hands on you and give you peace. But I can tell you draw from the peace within inside of you. And I said this a few weeks ago. It's much better to have the mind of peace than to have the peace of mind. Because peace of mind can come from having all the money you want in a checking account. That can give you some peace of mind, can it? Peace of mind could be your home is paid for, and you don't have any bills, and you have enough money to pay. That's peace of mind, but that can go away overnight. They can raise taxes so high you can't pay your taxes, and they can take your home. They can make car tax $5,000 and know that you don't own that car anymore. The minute you don't buy that car tax, you can't drive that car anymore.
Right.
You know, so they can raise all kinds of stuff, and you can lose your peace of mind, but you cannot lose the mind of peace.
Right.
The mind of peace to me is a knowing something. And I have that mind of peace in the financial realm. Kay has it in, I'm sure, that realm, but she has it in the physical realm. I don't know what realm you have it in. I hope you have peace, but I have the mind of peace that I don't worry about money anymore. And all of you know I don't have an endless checking account. Donna is always reminding me, honey, you need to go sell something. She doesn't do it near as much as she used to because I don't sell anymore. But, you know, we do need to make a living, but I know, without a shadow of a doubt, that I'll never have to worry about finances the rest of my life. So that is the mind of peace. Well, what if they raise taxes to 50%? I'm not worried about it. My Father is my supply, not money. Not money. Whatever needs to be there tomorrow, it can come in all different ways besides money. Have any of you had it happen that way? Besides money, it can come, and it does. So it's important for us to have this mindset so we can live with peace. He said, how beautiful are your feet in sandals, O prince's daughter. The curves of your thighs are like jewels. That's what I think when I look at Donna. The work of the hands of a skillful workman. So he said, you are his workmanship, created unto good works. And then verse 2, thy navel was like a round goblet, which wanteth not liquor. Thy belly, which is spirit, is like a heap of wheat set about with lilies. So she's been feeding on the death side of the cross, is what this is picturing to you. Jesus said, unless a corn of wheat fall and die, what did he say? It buys alone. He said, man, you've got your spirit full of what I've done. And I always love it. I remember when years ago they used to tell John Cahill he was just full of it. And about 5, 8, 9 years later, I had 4 or 5 people tell me, you're just full of it. And I think, thank you, I am. I am full of the things of God. I'm full of the understanding of God. And I'm telling you, it brings me tremendous, tremendous peace.
I may not meant that in a good way.
Ma'am?
Never mind.
Did you say something derogatory? Wanda, you may want to sit on the other side of the room. So by the 8th chapter, verse 10, she says, I, a wall. And the reason I typed it that way because they added the word "am." I think this even explains it even more. It's a plural. I, a wall. Both the same. I, salvation. Everything there is about salvation, I am. So here you see a woman. Boy, this is getting hot up here. Here you see a woman going from no identification with the death of Jesus, that's humanity, to agreeing with who she is in Christ, the new man. And there's a key for you today, family. I'm going to be using that word key a lot today. I'm going to show a bunch of keys out there in the auditorium that people need to write down. But this is a major key is you have to agree who you are. You have to agree. Again, without faith, it's impossible to agree with God. And so that's why, people say, well, Pastor Roy, how many times do you have to take 6 steps to the throne? Until you agree with it. Until it rules your life.
Until we all.
until we all come together, because it's not enough just for us 12 and no more.
No.
You know, we're doing it and we're studying it so we can go out and teach other people. I've told many people, this school is not about having you take 15 classes, different classes a semester. I'm not concerned about you saying, oh, we took 45 classes. What this school is about is by the time we get to the 4th year of it, I believe every one of you are going to function 100% out of your eyes to see and your ears to hear. I believe you're going to be able to go through Scripture and say, this is what Jesus did, this is what Jesus did, this is who Christ is, this is who we are. You're going to be able to take every picture and grind it out, because that's what this school is about. It's teaching you to look for what Jesus did and who we are. And the more you know, and you know what? There's more to it than just crucified, died, buried, quick, and raised, seated. The Bible said, John said, if books were written of what Jesus did, this planet could not contain them. So we're just learning more and more, and I'm never going to quit. I don't desire to quit. This is all I'm interested in. So here you see a woman going, again, from no identification to totally agreeing. It's just like the burnt offering. In the burnt offering, there were 3 different offerings that could be brought. It had to do with your maturity level. Now here in the picture, it had to do with how much money you had, right? And remember Jesus, when he was talking about the poor, he said, you will always have the poor among you. He wasn't talking about people with money.
No.
He was talking about poor-minded. There are people poor-minded in all 5 realms of life. Butch touched on that the last few weeks. There are people who are sick-minded, and they're always sick. No matter what you do, they're sick. It gives them some kind of gratification. There are people who are poverty-minded. They're always poor financially. They always, in their mind, they don't have enough. I've met people that have money, but yet they say they're poor. They have money, they're scared to spend it because they're scared that becomes their God, and if they spend it, they're going to be without. They're poor-minded. You know, I always say this, the only thing money is for is getting what you want. That's all it's for. It'll keep coming. Just don't be stupid with it, you know. But it's not my God. And so there needs to be an understanding here that if you don't see these things, if we go back to chapter 6, verse 6, it says, none is barren. If you don't have that understanding, then you are going to be barren. You're going to not produce what God wants to produce out of your life, and you're going to see yourself as lacking all the time. You know what I taught about worship and praise, how worship is actually ascertaining and searching after and understanding God, and praise is telling a story. Well, if you remember, David, when he came in after winning the battle with, who was it, the giant? He came in, and Goliath, he stripped off to his loincloth and he danced like a crazy man. And
that wasn't after that battle.
Well, that's after one of the battles. I thought it was a different one. But his wife made fun of him. She mocked him. What was her name, Donna? David's wife. Micah, she made fun of him, and she was barren all the days of her life. She made fun of that worship, if you would. She mocked that worship. And if you don't worship in the truest sense of the word, and I'm not just about what we did last week, but I'm talking about the truest sense of the word, then you're going to be barren. You're not going to know these things, and you won't live as the pearl of God. And so that's why we hunger for more people to come to this class. That's why we hunger for more people to show up at dinner time Sunday morning out here, because the reason they're barren is because they're not learning. The reason they're suffering is because they're not learning. I'm not just talking about us, I'm talking about everywhere. Because I still believe our biggest problem is right up here in our head. You know, and I was telling Kay about what I was joking about doing, that whenever people come for prayer, I'm just going to say, you know, it's not that you have cancer, you have a mental disorder up here. It's not that you have arthritis, you have a mental disorder. You've got the wrong information up here. And that's why we should always lay hands on people and pray, Father, help them see the truth. Yes, we'll minister and we'll say that has no power and we'll speak life to them, but included in it, I'm going to say, Father, deal with their mind, deal with their understanding as you are with our mind and with our understanding, because we desperately need to be made free from those wrong thoughts up there. So, where did I read last? I'm going to close pretty quick.
Today.
Oh, the 8th chapter. I was talking about how she sees herself as a wall. So, the burnt offering, there was 3 different offerings that could be brought. They were all brought according to how much money you had, which today it's how much understanding you had. If you had some finances, you had to bring a bullock. If you did not have much money, then you brought a goat or a sheep. And if you had hardly no money at all in the natural, you would bring a mourning dove or a pigeon. What that pictures, family, if you have some real understanding, and you have some real understanding, then your offering is Jesus Christ and Him crucified. That's what that is. That's your offering. You have the full understanding of what took place. And see, God wants us to offer that. God wants us to say, like Paul, I've done no one wrong. I know who I am. I'm Christ. But if you don't have a lot of understanding, then you bring a goat or a sheep, and then you had to put your hands on that offering. You put your hand on that. But then if you had very little offering, you brought a mourning dove and a pigeon, and you wasn't even involved in it. The priest had to pull the head off. The priest did all the work. So you don't see your union with it. So the more knowledge you have, the more understanding it is. You were there when they crucified the Lord. You were involved in that. Humanity was involved in that. And you see that Jesus became, it wasn't just for you. The dove and the pigeon, it's just Jesus dying for you. Right? Can you see that? And so riches today are wisdom and knowledge, not money. Anytime you hear somebody quote a scripture that says he gives you power to get wealth, that's not talking about money. I've heard people teach that a lot, and we give our offering so we can get more money back. That's not true. But the power to get wealth, and also where it talks about prosper, brother, I would that you would prosper. The word prosper and wealth is wisdom and knowledge and understanding. Yeah. That's wealth.
Yes.
So you've got to identify with that offering. That's the bullock. That's identifying. The bullock was the one that put their hands on. And so identification brings wisdom and knowledge. And when you live with wisdom and knowledge, you think you're going to lack anywhere at all? You won't. So the goat and the lamb were brought by that next group. They killed it, but they did not put their hands on it. They put their hands on the bullock. And so the Lord is bringing us by the Spirit to the place in the church where our brain and our intellect is renewed by the finished work of Jesus Christ. Paul said, do not be conformed to this world anymore, but be ye transformed by the renewing mind. So we're learning to lean to the Spirit. As we learn to lean to the Spirit and draw from the Spirit, then we're going to find out the book of Revelation 22, where it talks about that great city, it's a present reality right now. I love teaching out of the book of Revelation chapter 22. When Butch and I taught in the school before, we would teach the feast of the Lord or whatever. We always fought to see who was going to get to teach that chapter, because it's just a fun chapter to teach, because it's who we are now. That city is us. Everything that you read in the book of Revelation, it's not a future reality, it's a present reality. And John saw it back then. He saw the new heaven and he saw the new earth, and that's us. And so that's our goal, family, is to keep feeding and keep feeding and keep feeding until we see it so much. And what we're going to do is we're going to turn around and we're going to give portions to them that have none. In the book of Nehemiah, it talks about giving portions to them that have none. Many people in your world out there do not have this. Would you agree with me? And God is equipping you to do that so you can realize, like this young lady in the Song of Solomon, the Shulamite, I'm everything he says I am. You're going to quit saying, there's spot in me. You're going to quit saying, I'm unlovely. You're going to agree with Father God. And when you agree with Him, there's no end of what can take place in your life. Amen?
Amen.
So that concludes that chapter. I'll get a new one written this week, hopefully. Get it edited, and then I'll send it out over the internet, and I'll bring it to you guys. Everybody's doing good on their lessons. There's a few people that are missing a couple of tests, but most of them are in, so we appreciate what you're sending. We love you. God bless you.